It's the ABC.
The what?
The ABC.
The what?
The ABC of opera.
Yeah, so end of Baroque, Jack and Meghan ended back in their village of Pont Rigorfennol, and their mission was to take opera to school, to tell their grandparents, to tell their friends that this world, this crazy world, this balmy world of the Academy was full of stories and full of music that needed to be shared for it to be kept alive. And that's what they've been doing, I hope, for the last couple of years. But we know in book 2 that we do know that they did an assembly in school and told their friends about the crazy world. And even Jack's gran came to help out, and that was slightly embarrassing for Jack. Well, the classical period in music, I think, is probably one of the most exciting, and it's why I got involved in music. So book 2 takes us to that world that I was first introduced to Mozart, Rossini, Haydn, and they're some of the biggest names, I think, that we know in classical music, but they also had great stories attached to them. Windy Wolfgang, we know that he was a wind machine, as well as a child genius, a child protege, but who ended up in a pauper's grave. Tortellini Rossini was one of the few composers who knew how to make money, and he was known as the king of the dining table. So thus the name Tortellini Rossini. We meet the Chevalier, who was the Black Mozart. Great story. Black slave, brought over the French Revolution time, became an amazing composer. We've got the inventor of the classical period, Hector Haydn, who taught Mozart and taught Beethoven and people like that. We've got Beethoven in there. There's a lovely bit where he chops the legs off the piano, and we only know that that's kind of true is because every time that a piano was collected from Beethoven's house, there was no legs on it. So Broadwood pianos either worked out that he took the legs off to hear the music, the vibrations, or he took the legs off to burn the wood on the fire because he was freezing cold in his flat and he had no money. So there's two theories, but yeah, we meet some great big personalities that all have a moral and a tale to take for the kids. The main one is Mozart, but he's supported by lots because Beethoven, Rossini, they all wanted to meet Mozart. I think this idea, some people were threatened by him, some people just thought he was a complete delight, but it was the idea that a child basically could write this music and write it so perfectly the first time. Because if you look at Mozart's music compared to Beethoven or anybody else, there's never any mistakes. He literally hears the sound and just writes it down. So Mozart's music was perfect, whereas Beethoven's literally looked like 1,000 ants had been squashed in a piece on the ledger lines. It was just shambolic. So yeah, it's a great story, and also for me, he is a child, and we're writing for children with a story that, in theory, is an elite story. But I hope that we've jushed it up and twisted it around a bit to make it accessible for us all. So when we started in 2005, the whole idea was that we would do a day's workshop, and that would be taught the 500-year story of opera with costumes and a trunk and stories of the composers, what went wrong, what went right with music, with songs. We very quickly were being told that, because we were saying we start our story in the land that's shaped like a boot, where pasta comes from, where the Leaning Tower of Pizza comes from. The teachers would very quickly say to us, you do realize that you're teaching geography, history, modern foreign languages, health and well-being was a big one that was coming up. The whole thing about the books, about the workshops, and now we have a teacher's resource pack, which is accredited by University of Wales and the Guildhall School of Music. It's all about that opera is our vehicle to educate the children. So the word opera means work. We can take the children on a journey anywhere in the world, find a piece of music, find a story, give them morals, just give them an adventure. And I think if this project goes as I've always dreamt, it starts in Wales and it can be a global project. I mean, there's no question. We have stories from all over. At the moment, the Teachers Resource Pack is in half a dozen schools, and we're being told that we're teaching 100% of the new curriculum for Wales through the Academy of Army Composers. So I think we're now going to work with Trinity, University of Wales, Trinity St David's for the next 2 years, and the idea that we'll have accreditation at the end of that. We're going into 5 schools in Pembroke and then 150 schools over the next year. The students, the final year students at Trinity, will take the ABC books and the ABC project into schools. Through creativity and through an amazing story, we can teach so many and empower the children, I think, is a big thing, because we've been asked to write an ABC equivalent for the National Children's Orchestra. I think it's this idea that we knew what the composers had a difficult time too. Life was never easy for any of us. You know, lockdown is a clear example. There's going to be good days, there's going to be bad days. We're reaching out to children and educating them in a fun way that can get opera out there. But as I said, opera is more the vehicle that we can tell these amazing stories. So I'm very, very lucky that book 2 is illustrated by our same genius illustrator, Carl Davis, who just brings my stories to life even further. And I love the way that he tells a joke within the drawings, and they've got charm, and they've got his stamped on them. Everything about them feels old-fashioned and yet fresh. They sit perfectly in my stories. I hope that they go away and listen to some of the music. I hope that they find out that some of these great historical characters, like Horrible Histories, have got a place in today's life, and also that life is not easy for anyone. There's not many of us are full of beans the whole time. There's not many of us have plain sailing. I hope they laugh, I hope they learn, and I hope they want to read the third adventure that Jack and Megan go on.
It's the